This is the
Five Stars
podcast.
Let me talk to you.
Hi.
So, what do you guys want to talk about? Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Thanks, guys. Back to you.
All right. Let's see if I remember how to do this. What's going on, everyone? It's been a while. I think this is the longest hiatus I've ever taken on the channel since I started doing this back in summer of 2021. Man, has it really been that long? It's funny, I haven't really thought all that much about coming up on the 4th year of the show. But yeah, that sounds about right. Summer of 2021. It's when I decided to come on here and revamp what was already a debunked wrestling channel. You know, maybe someday I'll actually come on here and explain what the whole backstory was with all that. Some people might be wondering why my voice was like 5 notches higher at some point on those old episodes. It's a long story and not really something I want to belabor at the moment. I've been out of the wrestling bubble for a little over a month. I've tried to keep tabs on the modern product and listen to some of Jim Cornette's podcast when I can. Haven't really been missing out on much. And meanwhile, as far as the stuff we've been covering here on the channel, all the classic footage, well, I haven't had access to my computer because I didn't take it with me on the job trip to Minnesota. Which, by the way, that is now a finished project. One of the more taxing jobs I've ever been a part of. But it was a fun trip. I enjoyed myself. Learned a lot. Made some mistakes. Learned how to deal with subcontractors and people that generally just don't really know what they're doing. But it was very rewarding when the installation was complete. And, now I'm back here in Ohio. Flew back on Tuesday this week. Took a personal day on Friday so I could catch up on some rest after having worked essentially 30 days straight. So I'm well rested. I got the chance on Friday to get a jump start with getting back into the flow of things here with the channel. I think we're ready to dive back in. And since it's been a while, I'll go ahead and re-welcome everybody to the podcast. This is the Five Starr Wrestling Report, the wrestling channel nobody knows but everybody needs. We do Monday and Friday podcasts on YouTube and Rumble. And for Monday's show, we've been doing the Retro Raw deep dives and covering all the shows dating back to 93. We are now currently in the summer of 96, where things have been starting to take off a bit with the Stone Cold Steve Austin gimmick. Shawn Michaels is still the WWF champion, God help us all. And business is still relatively in the toilet, considering everything going on with the opposition on Nitro, where the NWO is picking up steam. They're the new hot trend. And we have officially entered the period of the Monday Night Wars where Nitro is beating Raw in the ratings for the following 83 consecutive weeks. Not exactly sure where we are in that timeline, but I know we're in the thick of it. And since I basically spent the better half of the first part of this year 1 week behind schedule with all the Raw reviews, I figured now's probably a good time to actually treat this like a real authentic retro deep dive. So today we're going to pick up with things with the July 15th episode. It is unfortunate that I missed out on getting to review the King of the Ring pay-per-view from June, because that was a pretty substantial moment in Steve Austin's career. And I could probably spend 10 minutes alone just reviewing the Austin 316 promo. But we're about a month removed from that. And suffice it to say, if you remember anything about the WWF from 96, for anyone thinking that that memorable Austin promo was the catalyst that cemented him as a top guy, yeah, you'd be wrong. It was more or less just a promo at the time. Obviously, it would become much more renowned when you look back through history. But for the current timeline, there was nothing that really came out of it with the immediate fallout. Yes, Austin was slightly elevated when it came to his positioning on the card, but we're still not even at the point where Austin's calling out Bret Hart on television. So July was kind of a dud for Austin in terms of capitalizing on that King of the Ring promo. I'm trying to even remember what they're setting up for Austin at SummerSlam, because the match with Bret doesn't happen until Survivor Series. So there's this really bizarre gap between like July and October/November where Austin's just kind of floating through space and not really doing much of anything. Except for cutting promos on Bret, obviously. Anyway, I don't want to get bogged down with all that. There's plenty to talk about with this week's episode of Raw. Not the least of which was this abomination of an opener with Bart Gunn versus Ahmed Johnson. Holy smokes. What a fucking rib on me, right? The first thing I come back to with these retro reviews after a month away, and this is the first thing I'm being subjected to. By the way, Ahmed Johnson's the Intercontinental Champion now, in case you care to know. I, for the life of me, cannot even remember who the previous champion was. Was it Goldust? That sounds correct. Just didn't care enough to look it up beforehand. I almost completely forgot about the whole Sunny alliance with the Smoking Guns, who, last I checked, I think we're still heels. Still not entirely sure what the whole story is with that. So, well, the match sucked. The camera guy shooting Sonny's ass and tits the whole time was nice to look at. But that was probably the only redeeming quality about the whole segment. Again, here's what I don't understand. Sonny's out there being a bully to Vince McMahon. She's wearing these scampy short shorts, and she's basically just working like an annoying valley girl the whole time. But then Bart and Ahmed are just having a babyface match where they're shaking hands and applauding one another after somebody would do something impressive. Impressive. I use that term loosely. So again, what the hell is going on here? Are the Guns heels or baby faces? Can you just pick a side? Crowd didn't give a shit. It's like listening to an AEW crowd. They're just sitting there watching guys do moves. There's no energy, no investment. Did I mention this was a title match? Yeah, it still wasn't enough to get the people to care. A couple other random notes I added here, unrelated to the match. Vince and King were talking about Psycho Sid's return, which had to have been very recent, because I think it was like late June, early July when Sid came back to the WWF, right? And, they tried to explain the logic of Shawn Michaels wanting to recruit Sid as a partner, even though Sid was the one who turned on him and laid him out with a power bomb like a year ago. It was actually more like 4 power bombs. It was not a very good explanation. Vince also mentioned the Warrior no-showing several house show events recently, which seemed to be the indication that the Warrior was officially gone. He basically fired him without directly using the words, "You're fired." So Ahmed eventually won with a Pearl River plunge. And that took us to this pre-taped Shawn promo afterwards where he was talking about, a couple things actually. Oh, that's right. Forgot to mention this too. Yeah, apparently there's an In Your House pay-per-view coming up next week. International Incident from Vancouver. Quite the foreign affair. And yeah, the big attraction match for that show is Shawn, Ahmed, and Sid versus Camp Cornette in a 6-man. And the whole concern over whether or not Sid could be trusted as a partner for the babyfaces. I seriously don't remember any of this shit. If I did watch that In Your House pay-per-view as a kid, complete blur. But Shawn talked about that for a bit. He plugged his match with Billy Gunn for later on. Did I miss the part where the Smoking Guns became major contenders for world championships in the WWF? What the hell happened over the last month? I mean, I know they're the tag champions right now, but what the hell did they do to earn IC and WWF title matches? Did Sonny give Vince a BJ before Raw aired that week? Actually, you know what? Considering the whole topic of Vince and the way he handles his sexual urges, maybe I shouldn't touch that one. Poor taste. Speaking of poor taste, let's talk about Mark Merrow versus TL Hopper. Oh, good Christ. Poor dirty white boy. He didn't deserve this. Dude. Where do I even fucking start? You talk about how to kill a guy's career instantly. And these are the kinds of gimmicks that Vince gave guys where I just look back with total resentment. Not even in the sense that it was bad taste, but the fact that Tony Anthony was an actual good worker with a good reputation in the business. Yeah, for the people that never got to see him work outside the WWF umbrella, well, TL Hopper would be their only image of Anthony as a worker. And of course, it's the fucking plumber gimmick. because we all know Vince's obsession with bathroom humor. It's like, this stuff pisses me off even more than just giving average Joes bad gimmicks. You know, when Vince would take actual talents and give them these horrible characters just to kill their momentum right out of the gate. And again, nobody gave a crap about this. Mark Merrow's still a waste of space. Nothing's changed with him over the last month since we've talked about him. Sable, same thing. Again, it's just a boring, nothing happening TV match with two guys who aren't over and nobody cares about. And I mentioned earlier about Austin being in this cycle of limbo coming out of the King of the Ring pay-per-view. Now they got him beefing with Mark Merrow, which ain't really doing him any favors. At least he's finally getting to cut his own promos. But yeah, this is a total waste of time. Merrow knocked out Hopper with a left hook and pinned them. Had nothing else to add. Nor did I have much to add about Camp Cornette's pre-tape after the match. Apparently they tried to pitch to this in a picture-in-picture during the match, but they couldn't get their audio situation sorted out. Because, well, yeah, they were still rinky-dink, even back in 1996. They didn't really say much of note. Cornette plugged the six-man for Sunday. Davey, Vader, and Owen were standing there being cartoony, over-exaggerated, smug heels. The only thing I bothered to really write down was the visual of Bulldog wearing a fanny pack. It immediately killed his credibility to be taken seriously as a top heel. Anybody that tries to tell you it's not weird for guys to wear fanny packs, they're lying. They did air a cool little promo package for the Undertaker-Mankind feud. I think this might have been the first time they aired Jim Johnson's 96 production of Taker's theme. I know he had a couple different versions that he produced. This one was cool, though. It had the rock backing track with guitars and bass and drums. Kind of reminded me when Taker was doing the Prince of Darkness shtick later on during the Attitude Era. Didn't he use a rock setting for his theme during that time? Or am I just imagining things? Well, in any case, let's get to the main event here with Shawn Michaels and Billy Gunn for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. That's right. Billy Gunn received a WWF title shot in 1996. How many people actually remember that? To be frank, I think this is just an excuse to get Sonny back on camera for another segment. I just like the idea that Shawn's out there molesting her early on, and Sonny has to pretend to be disgusted by Shawn kissing and groping her at ringside. As if, especially knowing their history together, she was all about that. There was actually a lot of talk about sex during this match. An amazing commercial pitch spot where Lawler was bringing up the Canadian Olympic swimmers agreeing to refrain from sexual intercourse. No idea what he was talking about. But then Vince point blank just blurts out, "Sex? What does sex have to do with the World Wrestling Federation?" That got a chuckle out of me. Leave it to Vince McMahon to be repulsed by the idea of sex and wrestling being mentioned in the same breath. The fucking irony is delicious. I mean, I don't want to entirely overlook the match here because it wasn't bad. It was miles better than Bart versus Ahmed in the opener. Not that the bar was set all that high. I mean, they did some okay stuff together. Billy was never a bad worker. He was just saddled with a rotten tag partner and a dead-in-the-water gimmick from the onset. And not to say Mr. Ass was much of an upgrade. At least he was in better ring shape by that period. There just wasn't a whole lot to say about it. Shawn won with a sweet chin. Sonny was upset. 0 for 2 on the night. She wanted the Guns to walk away with more gold, and they both failed her. Bet she's regretting walking out on the Body Donnas, right? Yeah, probably not. They did go out on a high note. And that was mainly for the 10-second cameo with Sid. So they showed a split screen during the match where Cornette's team was seen leaving the building. It was clearly a ruse. So they cut to the back where Ahmed and Shawn meet up by the entrance tunnel. Then Jim Cornette runs up and throws a cup of water in Shawn's face. And so the babyfaces start giving chase to JC toward the parking lot area. And you know, that right there is where I completely call bullshit. The fat, plumpy manager managing to outrun both the babyfaces, one of whom included Shawn Michaels. I love JC, but come on. Shawn would have tackled him in a matter of seconds. So sure enough, the heels jumped the faces in the parking lot. And it was a relatively uneventful brawl until Sid showed up from literally out of nowhere with his Lincoln Continental. And this motherfucker just smashed into some wooden crates. He was told, Sid, you've got to make a dramatic entrance for this thing. And he did not fail. I'm not kidding. It legitimately scared the shit out of me watching. I mean, this car just zooms in from out of nowhere and slams right into these box crates. And then Sid gets out like a wild man and starts chasing the heels away into their getaway car where they drive off. Probably as a shoot. They said, Sid's here. Fuck it. We're gone. He'll probably beat us up for real if we don't get out of here. And, well, this did confirm why Psycho Sid is an all-time great. His 10-second appearance on the go-home show to the pay-per-view was better than anything else put together. And if you know anything about Sid's career when it comes to parking lots and cars, well, if you know, you know. YouTube, Psycho Sid, spot number 22. It's a gem. Anyway, there's your Raw report. Not much has changed since we left things in late May, early June. Show still sucks. Shawn Michaels is still a ratings bomb. You know, it's funny when people look back at Shawn's run as champion. He literally spent the entirety of 96 just feuding with various members of Camp Cornette. And that really goes to show how limited the scope of main event heels were during this time. You know, like, to be fair, the matches weren't terrible or anything. They weren't very exciting either. Of course, we all know what happens when we get Shawn versus Vader at SummerSlam. But like this whole early to midsummer period for the WWF in 96, it's just a haze to me. You know, I was still swept up with what WCW was doing during this time. You know, the WWF was kind of put on the back burner for me. To be honest with you, that's really the main crux of what we're dealing with right now. We've got two warring wrestling promotions going at it. WCW is just leaving the WWF in the dust week by week. Nitro is way better. The shows are more engaging. They got hot storylines with top guys that everybody's invested in. The shows are edgier and more geared toward the current market of fans that were watching the product around this time. Meanwhile, there's Vince, just stuck in his old way of doing business. And it's probably why a lot of this content doesn't really resonate at first glance, because it's all very unmemorable. The WWF was just not very interesting around this time. It was an ice-cold product. I mean, for God's sake, they're pushing the smoking guns on television right now. In 1996. Could you be any more desperate for ideas? I actually browsed the pay-per-view card momentarily because, I genuinely wanted to see what was happening on this International Incident pay-per-view. And aside from me having no memory of anything that happened in that six-man, well, here's the rest of the card, in case you were curious. The Body Donnas beat the Smoking Guns. Mankind beat Henry O'Godwin. For what reason, I don't know. But it happened. Stone Cold beat Mark Marrow. Undertaker beat Goldust. Then I guess the heels beat Sean Ahmed and Sid in the six-man. What a great fucking comeback for Sid, right? Loses his first pay-per-view match. So we'll cover that barn burner next week and see just how unmemorable it truly was. It still beats having to review anything about the modern product. I'll tell you that much. And that was a topic that I wanted to bring up at some point, so probably a good time to do it now, since I've had some time to actually think about how I want to use my free time going forward. The modern WWE product is so bad, dude. It's nearly beyond reproach for me at this point. There's an overabundance of content with an underabundance of good quality. What was the last WWE show I reviewed on the channel? Was it Backlash? Can't even remember. It's been so long. WrestleMania 41 was a total bust. This John Cena heel run is a complete and utter disaster. I watched several clips of Cena's stuff while I was away. Let me put it this way. I honestly didn't think it was humanly possible for them to not get me to want to watch a CM Punk match. But that fucking ridiculous pipe bomb knockoff thing they did with him a couple weeks back, where Punk had to lay there motionless in the ring for like 10 minutes while Cena's just standing over him, cutting a work shoot promo. It just made Punk look like a total schlub. Yeah, meanwhile they got Cena trying to do this cheap imitation of the same promo setting from like, whatever it was, 13, 14 years ago when Punk originally did the pipe bomb promo on Cena. God, that whole thing was just awful. And it's not to say that Cena's the core reason for me just not caring about the modern WWE product. And there's been a lot of growing criticism over Triple H lately. And hate to say I told you so. I mean, I've been on record saying that I never thought Hunter was a great booker or a great wrestling mind. Like, go back and watch my reviews of SmackDown when I was doing it a couple years ago on the channel. I mentioned several times that I didn't really think Triple H had any idea what he was doing. The shows were very lousy and very one-dimensional. And now people are finally catching up to the fact that, yeah, Triple H is not a very good booker. I think Hunter kind of falls into the same category as somebody like a Paul Heyman, where he's really good at coming up with surface-level ideas, but he doesn't really have a clear-cut path to where he wants to take stuff. So you get these long, tedious storylines that just seem like they tread water and stretch out for excessive periods of time, and they never really go anywhere constructive. Things just kind of fizzle out unceremoniously. What the hell is going on with the Bloodline? Does anybody even care about that group anymore? Cody's getting back on track with trying to recapture the title, which I think is the money match they're building to at SummerSlam. Him and Cena in the rematch. Not that I'm really looking forward to seeing that match, because I wasn't blown away by the first one they had. And I don't expect Cody to win it back. He'll probably get fucked over by Randy Orton or something like that. But all in all, there's not that one core feud that really captures my interest right now. There's no CM Punk Drew McIntyre equivalent to last year. And I've already missed Money in the Bank and the Night of Champions reviews. They just did a Saturday night's main event this past weekend where Goldberg apparently wrestled his retirement match against Gunther. And I haven't even bothered to watch that because, frankly, I don't really want to see Goldberg wrestle in 2025. Regardless of whether or not it's supposed to be his retirement match. Should have retired after that Saudi match with The Undertaker several years back. So I think the next PLE after this is SummerSlam, right? That's not until late August. I got a little over a month to think about it. I might do a review of the show just because it's SummerSlam. It's one of the big four. But again, man, oversaturation of the market. WWE is just overexposed the product to the point where I just can't even keep up anymore. There's way too many shows, way too many things to keep track of. And I just don't have the passion for it like I do covering the classic content. It's getting to the point now in my personal life where I just don't have the time or energy to want to cover every single solitary WWF PLE. So I think going forward, at least in terms of my coverage of WWE, if it's not one of the big four, Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, I wouldn't hold out hope for any elaborate long-form reviews. I might touch on a couple keynotes or do a brief synopsis of the smaller PLEs. But until something monumental happens, it gives me a reason to want to sink my teeth back into the product. The modern WWE coverage is going to be very sparse from here on out. So I just want to throw that on the table in case you're one of the few people that solely come to listen to me do the WWE reviews. And I'm still going to keep form with everything else for the time being. I don't know if that'll end up changing soon, but at least for now, we'll keep things going with all the classic coverage we've been doing. There's your state of the channel address, I guess. It's good to do these every now and then just to give you an update on where I'm at with things. Busy. It's the way I like it. In any case, I would say that was a solid comeback episode. I know that Might have a little bit of trouble attracting some viewers because I've been away for a while. Hopefully people have that notification bell turned on so they know when the podcast goes up. But I guess we'll leave it on that note. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, comment, and give the show a like for me. We will be back on Friday for the coverage of WCW Mid-South and World Class, and we'll get back into form with that as well. So, yeah, it's good to be back. I think I needed a little bit of a break, and I'm ready to resume as normal. So, folks, thanks a lot, and talk to you all soon. Take care. Peace out.